Our opening keynote is going to be AC Charania. He is currently a business development director at Blue Origin within the government sales and strategy team, where he works to make internal future concepts, strategies, and scenarios. He's also one of the leaders helping manage the Blue Moon commercial lunar lander project, and he's formerly a senior director of strategy and business operations at Virgin Galactic, and has been the founder or involved with the founding of 3 different aerospace startups. So without further ado, AC Charania.
Yeah, thanks, man. All right. Well, can everyone hear me? All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to NewSpace 2018. Welcome to Seattle. For those of us visiting from out of town or out of the country, it's been an exciting morning. Some of you have been watching the World Cup, some interesting games this morning. Won't reveal what happened, but yeah, so today I'm going to talk a little bit about Blue Origin, who we are, what we're doing, our vision, and how you can engage with us. I've got several of my colleagues in the audience, so please come up during the conference, talk to us about how we can help enable your vision to space. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and thanks for the introduction. I've been at Blue about 1.5 years. Prior to Blue Origin, I was at Virgin Galactic, now Virgin Orbit, working the Launcher One program. Before that was at SpaceWorks Enterprises in Atlanta and DC for about 12 years, doing advanced concepts, starting new space companies, et cetera. So I'm very happy and thrilled to be talking to the NewSpace community, having been a former a board member of the Space Frontier Foundation. Always exciting to come back to this conference. Always exciting to see the growth. Always excited to see the volunteers, the young volunteers that help manage the conference year after year after year. And I think that to me provides inspiration of the NewSpace movement. We and other companies are representative of that. The other reason is please join us on this journey. So at Blue Origin, we're also hiring. So I'll talk a little bit more about that as we progress into the conversation. So next slide. Oh, it's on the podium? Oh, thanks. So I'll start off with the vision. So the vision of Jeff Bezos, our founder, and our company is millions of people living and working in space. That is a mantra we repeat to ourselves. We look at the systems we're developing, the technical roadmaps that we have, and looking at how are the technologies that we're investing in, the systems we're developing, the customers we're serving, fulfill this vision. We have a vision to develop space transportation elements, space infrastructure elements, to enable this vision both for ourselves and our vision, but also all of your visions. Let's see. Next slide works. Maybe in the back, can you transfer to the next slide? Yes, all right. So this is a quote from Jeff, and we put it up here because I think it's reflective of how that vision is implemented into our company. The thing about Blue Origin and what we can contribute to the space movement, the new space movement, is to develop the heavy infrastructure that can enable the visions of future entrepreneurs, to encourage the entrepreneurial dynamism that's in this room and that will be here in this century. So what we are trying to do is reduce the cost of access to space. Once you're in space, reduce the cost of access to other places in the solar system and the Earth-Moon system, and develop some of that heavy infrastructure. All these capabilities, all these systems, all these services that we're providing will enable the Gerard K. O'Neill vision that we all read about in The High Frontier, for those of you who are familiar with some of those visions from the 1970s. And Jeff is very interested in Blue Origin enabling this future, to enable this heavy infrastructure development with the resources that Jeff and Blue can bring to the table to enable this larger vision. As Jeff says, Amazon was successful because the foundations of the internet were here. Browser technology, a PC on every desk, electronic payments, TCP/IP, and credit card payment transactions, as well as international shipping. All of those heavy elements, heavy infrastructure were there for Amazon to then develop this incredible capability. And as Jeff and us develop the systems at Blue Origin that we can contribute in a similar manner for space. So two people in a garage have a vision for a IT company that they can execute on. In the future, two people in a garage have an idea for a large space enterprise. We at Blue Origin and others can help enable that vision. So that's a pretty exciting time for us to implement that, and very exciting for all of you to join us in that journey, both now and into the future, to enable your future business plans, your future technologies, et cetera. Next slide. So we at Blue are focused on a few major core units of the company. So this kind of represents the various elements and focus areas within the company. So we obviously have vehicles and technologies, but also we're looking at future products, future scenarios, future markets. So we have our vertical takeoff, vertical landing suborbital vehicle, New Shepard. We offer that for payload customers, as well as eventually for suborbital spaceflight participants. We have our orbital launch system, New Glen. We have the engines that power those vehicles. And then we have a group of the company called Advanced Development Programs, which is actually the group that I kind of help within the company, that looks further out, that looks at the future what-if scenarios, looks at our future roadmaps, looks at the future technologies, but also looks at future services and systems that we can implement. One of the things we have announced over the last year is our lunar lander program called Blue Moon. And that's what's represented here as one of the first systems that we're maturing within the Advanced Development Programs unit at Blue Origin. So it's a pretty exciting time. We had a new CEO at the company last year, Bob Smith, who's done a very good job within the company, aligning us for the future, helping us getting ready to scale to this larger vision, and getting our programs, New Shepard and New Glen, both operational and matured in the development phase. So, next slide. So we're a little over 1,500 employees, or about 1,500 employees and growing. You're in Seattle, Renton. A little bit south of here is Kent, Washington, where we have several major facilities, hundreds of personnel working on all of the systems I just talked to you about. We also have facilities in Texas where we do high energetic liquid rocket engine testing. There's also the launch and landing sites for our New Shepard suborbital system. In Florida, we are developing the manufacturing facility for our New Glen orbital launch system, as well as the East Coast launch site for New Glen. We obviously have a Metro DC presence in terms of government relations, sales, et cetera. And then we've also announced plans for a Huntsville, Alabama facility for future engine production, given certain discussions that are ongoing with certain partners. So pretty exciting time. I joined about a year and a half ago, and it's been great to see the growth, to see the organization, to see the focus of the company as we start scaling up and getting the systems both operational in terms of New Shepard, and then getting New Glen, maturing the design and getting the development process going on that vehicle. So next slide. So we have a philosophy of step-by-step development. The Latin phrase that we use here is gradum ferociter, step-by-step ferociously. The company has been around for over a decade, and step-by-step it has developed competencies in liquid rocket engines, tank technology, integrated systems, suborbital, and now applying that to orbital systems. A focus has been at the company vertical takeoff, vertical landing. A focus on the company has been liquid rocket propulsion competencies. A focus of the company has been reusability. So all of those technologies, techniques, architectures we've been leveraging, experimenting on, and practicing on various systems. You now see that today in the New Shepard suborbital vehicle, and we're applying those lessons to our much larger orbital launch vehicle, New Glen. So New Shepard is a propulsion module using a single BE-3 LOX hydrogen engine. On top of that is a crew capsule that can take several people up into space, as well as payloads to suborbital altitudes for several minutes of microgravity time. And then we are developing New Glen, designed for 45 metric tons to low Earth orbit, 13 metric tons to GTO. Whereas New Shepard has one BE-3 engine on it, New Glen actually has 7 BE-4 engines on the first stage and 2 BE-3U engines on the second stage. We recently, a few months ago, made a change to New Glen to make the second stage a LOX hydrogen stage. Pretty exciting. I'm very excited about that, which will be an incredible in-space LOX hydrogen stage. One of the biggest, if not the biggest, commercial LOX hydrogen stage when we start flying. In addition, for our customers, obviously we're thinking more commercially, thinking more about our future customer base. We baselined a 7-meter payload fairing, the largest commercial fairing that will be available for our customers. So pretty exciting time, very customer focused with some incredible technologies like the BE4 engine on the first stage, 7 of those, as well as the incredible performance of the 2 BE3U LOX hydrogen engines on the second stage. So pretty exciting times at Blue Origin. I should also mention the aspect of reusability. Once again, trying to get the cost of access down to enable that larger vision requires reusability, but not just eventual on-ramping of reusability, immediate reusability or operational reusability. And that's our focus with New Shepard as well as New Glen, that the vehicles are, as they're coming off the production line, operationally reusable. And it's not something that's ramped on in, it's inherent to the system. Obviously, we want to get flying very rapidly and get the cost down for our customers and get launching as soon as possible. So that's kind of an approach we've done. Next slide. So this is a picture from our Florida facility in the lobby of the New Shepard vehicle and the propulsion module for that vehicle. So we don't show the capsule here, just the LOX hydrogen propulsion module. This vehicle went to space several times, and it's a pretty awesome sight to behold in person, to see a vehicle that's been to space several times, LOX hydrogen stage. That's our CEO, Bob Smith, kind of pointing the vehicle out to certain visitors. So yeah, pretty exciting times. And we have more vehicles in the pipeline. We have vehicles in Texas, or vehicle in Texas. And if you come down to Kent, vehicles as well there. So pretty exciting time, not just building one tail number, but multiple tail numbers for both suborbital payload customers as well as eventual human passengers. Next slide. As I mentioned, we do have the suborbital payload capability to get payloads to 100 kilometers apogee with several minutes of microgravity time, something that we believe is very useful. Before you go to the International Space Station, it's a great place to experiment and get some data that you can't otherwise get using traditional kind of vomit comet rides. I would encourage you to talk to my colleague, Erica Wagner. Erica, right there. She's been kind of an incredible champion of this kind of service, and has done yeoman's work, I think, in getting the community educated about the relevance, both technically, scientifically, for using New Shepard on suborbital research rides. We have sales and integration partnerships, but we've also had relationships with NASA to offer folks rides on New Shepard. And so please talk to Erica and please engage with her on how you can use New Shepard, both commercially, if you're at universities, or even if you're at high schools. She's done great work with all of those types of customer bases. So next slide. So this is a video of our West Texas site, and specifically of one of our prior launches of New Shepard. I think if you click one more time, the video should start. 5, 4, command engine start, 2. So this is the launch pad with the LOX hydrogen propulsion module using one BE3 engine. Entering boost mode. 120,000 pounds thrust on the BE3 engine that you see here with the crew capsule on top. So that integrated stack takes off. 10,000 feet. And a little bit below 100 kilometers separates. So you see a view from the crew capsule looking down, a view through the window of the crew capsule. And we actually had some objects float around so you could see kind of the microgravity effects in space. CC apogee, 351,000 feet. This capsule has one of the largest windows ever for a capsule. Then the propulsion module, as it's separated from the crew capsule, comes back, relights its LOX hydrogen engine. That LOX hydrogen engine can thrust down to about 20,000 pounds thrust, and then separately the crew capsule has a gentle return back to the surface. CC auto-safing started. Pretty exciting time. Look for more flights. If you want to put your payloads on this vehicle, talk to Erica. We've done dozens of we've flown dozens of experiments for both domestic and international customers. Please go on the internet and you can see videos of some of these customers and stories, including on NASA websites of how these customers have utilized New Shepard. So pretty exciting opportunity, and we've gotten very good responses now that we're actually flying these research payloads. And look for first human flight here shortly on New Shepard. So pretty exciting time as we get to as we transition. We've already transitioned operationally on the payload side and then on the human side. So pretty exciting times. Next slide.
6, 5.
All right. So I want to go a little bit into the technology development of the company. Like I mentioned, the company's been around more than a decade. And this idea of step-by-step development, you can see on this chart, where we have deep expertise in liquid rocket propulsion. And so in this chart, I show you a history of over a decade of starting with small thrust class monopropellant engines that are pressure fed, and then eventually adding more complexity and capability. So going from monopropellant to biprop, from pressure fed to pump fed, from going from film cooled to more complicated cooling channel approaches to regen chambers in our engines. The last 3 engines that you see here are the ones we're actively working on, or that we've announced in terms of the BE-3 for New Shepard, and then the BE-4 and the BE-3U for New Glen. We've got, even before New Shepard, we've had several vehicles we've developed that are vertical takeoff, vertical landing, that have leveraged our experience base. So you can see the step-by-step approach to developing these highly complex systems. An overall approach that we've used, as you see here, is, and we see realized in the BE-3, BE-3U, and BE-4 engine developments, is using a medium-performing version of a more advanced kind of architecture. So you can do very complicated, maybe LOX hydrogen engines, but you don't have to have extremely high chamber pressures, for instance. That is something you can evolve to. Or once again, a very complicated LOX LNG first stage BE-4 engine, but once again, you can evolve to better and better capabilities as you upgrade the system. So that has been seen very well in terms of the engine developments. The BE-3 has tens of thousands of seconds of test time, and we're testing the other engines that will go on New Glen as we speak, including the BE-4 and the BE-3U. So pretty exciting times for the company, leveraging the experience we've done over the last decade in terms of liquid propulsion, vehicle designs, vehicle experience, operational experience, that then builds to the New Glen launch vehicle. Next slide. So this is from our West Texas site. So a little bit away from the launch site for New Shepard are our engine test cells. So this is a long duration hot fire of the BE-4 LOX LNG engine, LNG being a version of methane, and that engine itself is about 550,000 pounds thrust class. So this is a kind of, this is kind of a boring slide. I apologize. It's just a very long engine firing. But that's kind of the things you try to aim for. So we try to be hardware rich in terms of having a lot of thrust chambers that we're developing, testing to get a lot of data. Once again, this is an integrated engine with power pack, et cetera, that has taken a lot of work to get here. So a lot of kudos to our engineering design teams here, manufacturing teams, as well as the test teams in Texas. Once again, that step-by-step approach means we have our own facilities and test facilities, and growing those facilities over time to do higher thrust class engine tests, as you see here. Every day we're testing out there, and there's a very high cadence of tests both on the BE-3, BE-3U, and BE-4 engines out in West Texas, concurrently with the work we're doing on New Shepard. So next slide. So now we go to New Glen, and we're all very excited at the company about New Glen. It's an orbital launch system designed to launch 45 metric tons to low Earth orbit, 13 metric tons to GTO with a 7-meter fairing. We've gotten great response within the community to New Glen. We've publicly announced agreements with different entities ranging from Eutelsat to OneWeb to NewSpace, both traditional and new operators within various industries who are looking to use New Glen to fulfill their business cases and their visions. Like I said, I'm very personally excited about the LOX Hydrogen second stage of New Glen and the abilities that can do both for our LEO, GTO, and GEO customers as well as beyond, including in the Earth-Moon space. So pretty exciting times. There's a heavy emphasis within the company on New Glen and leveraging the lessons from New Shepard in terms of reusability, vertical takeoff, vertical landing, and active development and testing of the engines behind New Glen as well. So. Next slide. So this is the launch vehicle landscape we sometimes typically use to show you the scale of New Glen. Sometimes it's hard to imagine how big the vehicle is, how spacious, et cetera. But, and also to realize that that first stage that we mentioned here that's reusable is a relatively large stage, but that practice, that experience, and the technical teams we've assembled at Blue give us confidence to achieving this kind of system. That first stage, as you'll see in a later video, actually lands on an ocean-going ship, so that's pretty exciting. We are just getting started with New Glen, but it's a pretty exciting capability that I think both the country and international customers in multiple industries can leverage. In addition, it's a very good launch vehicle for doing other things beyond GEO, such as our lunar architectures or getting to other locations to cislunar space or even beyond in other parts of the solar system. So I think it's a great U.S. national launch vehicle option that we're bringing to the table. Next slide. So next slide. So this is a short animation of a visualization representation of kind of a New Glen concept of operations where the vehicle is assembled in Florida at our site near Kennedy Space Center. It's actually immediately outside the gates of Kennedy Space Center near the KSC Visitors Complex. We have multiple landing legs. We have some active aero surfaces and some static aero surfaces as well on the vehicle to enable the ability to have to come back and land on that ocean-going platform. This is a representation of the launch site we're actively working to put together. We've taken over Launch Complex 36 and 11 at Kennedy Space Center. In the foreground, you see our facility represented that builds New Glen, and about directly 11 miles away from that site is the launch site that you just saw. So New Glen takes off with those 7 BE-4 engines, stage separation, and then second stage lights to deliver our payloads to orbit, whether to LEO, GTO, or beyond. So, like I said, very good customer reaction to New Glen in the marketplace. I think our 7-meter fairing has been very well received, and we have a global sales team that's actively working to offer New Glen to both domestic U.S. entities, international customers, and also to enable this larger vision that we have of millions of people living and working in space. Having such a capability is that first major step in orbital space. A very large ocean-going platform is used for the first stage to land on. That ship allows us to be a little bit more robust to different sea states, and then that ship and that first stage come back to Port Canaveral and then refurbished and then used again. Once again, the idea is operational reusability from the outset, and then obviously delivering our payload customers to their final destination. So pretty spacious payload fairing. I don't know exactly how many humpback whales fit into it. Star Trek 4 reference for those in the audience. Next slide. Yeah, so this is a short video of our manufacturing complex. It's an awesome place. I was there a few weeks ago. And it's a great site. We have dozens of our personnel there, outfitting the interior with additional infrastructure inside. We have a great viewing area, as you can see in terms of the balcony, for our customers to look at 11 miles away to the actual launch site. So pretty exciting times. We can actually see part of the KSC Visitor Center from the balcony. So pretty exciting, pretty robust capability to build vehicles right next to the launch site. We're investing a lot of money in the state of Florida, and we thank the state for helping us occasionally here and there. But yeah, pretty awesome capability we're building online. As the design team and engineering teams have the vehicle ready, we can then immediately start getting to manufacturing, integration, final assembly, launch ops at this facility. So next slide. So yeah, so now maybe I'll end the conversation a little bit with kind of looking a little bit further out. So I've talked a little bit about New Shepard. Please talk to Erica if you want to take a ride on New Shepard in terms of your payloads. And we're getting to human flight here shortly on that vehicle. We're actively working New Glen, actively developing, testing the first stage engines and the second stage engines for New Glen. But as we look out to this larger vision, this Gerard K. O'Neill vision, in terms informed by documents and books like The High Frontier, we are looking at both the solar system, but more specifically the Earth-Moon system. And specifically there, the idea of going back to the lunar surface, this time to stay. The eventual goal in this long-term vision, or one of the goals in this long-term vision, or one of the pathways in this vision, is a permanent human inhabited lunar settlement. Now, to enable such a vision, you need the ability to land several metric tons on the lunar surface repeatedly, successfully, and affordably. And so that first step of landing multi-metric ton payloads on the lunar surface is enshrined in a program we call Blue Moon, which is our first step to develop a new lunar lander capability for the country, for other customers internationally, to be able to land multi-metric tons on the lunar surface. Any permanent human presence on the lunar surface will require such a capability. So we're actively working on the descent stage for Blue Moon, the capabilities, the partnerships that are required to enable that service to go beyond and to start going back to the moon with larger and larger payloads. There are very interesting areas on the lunar surface that we've yet to explore. There are polar regions that we believe might have trapped volatiles. There's a lot more exploration we need to do. There are grand scientific questions that remain of how the solar system formed, that can be informed by going back to the moon, that can be informed by sample returning capabilities. Blue Moon can enable all of that in terms of both the science questions and helping answer many of those, in terms of kind of resource identification, helping to land infrastructure, then extract those resources, and then also to enable the human lunar return. So it's a pretty exciting time at Blue, where this larger vision we had of a lunar lander, we brought a little bit forward in time, with a goal to land on the lunar surface in the next 5 years with the first Blue Moon mission. So the Blue Moon program itself is run within our Advanced Development Programs group, as I mentioned. That's run by Rob Meyerson. And so we're actively working, developing, building the team that will take us back to the moon, this time to stay. So with that, I'll end the presentation. I encourage you to contact Erica here in terms of New Shepard. You can talk to me if you're interested about Blue Moon. The other thing is, please go to our website. We're always looking, one of the things we're most excited about is bringing on new team members. So please go to our website, look at our job postings. We're actively recruiting for dozens of positions. If you're students, if you're at a university, we have an internship program that's very robust, that happens every semester. My intern just started my summer intern just started this week. So pretty exciting times at Blue. Please join us on this journey, either as an employee, as an intern, as a New Shepard payload customer, eventually as a Blue Moon payload customer. And also, it's an exciting time both for us and the industry. It's going to take all of us to get up there. And at the end of the day, what we are enabling, going back to what I originally said, is the heavy infrastructure that can enable two people in this room to come out with an incredible, outlandish plan for a new business in space and enable it. And we at Blue Origin, both on the transportation side, the infrastructure side, can enable that vision that you all have and the entrepreneurial dynamism that you all have in NewSpace. So, thank you.
Hi, AC. I'm Alan Boyle with GeekWire. You mentioned that the goal is to have a lunar lander go to the moon in 5 years. I know that there's the National Space Council's initiative and that whole program, but do you see it happening as part of that program, or is there a scenario where there would be a privately backed mission to do it in 5 years?
Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations with NASA and different NASA directorates, Science Mission Directorate, Human Exploration Operations Mission Directorate, and others about Blue Moon and our desire to do a lunar lander. Our vision is that Blue Moon is a commercial lander that could be informed, could be assisted, could be helped by NASA partnerships, both technically and in other ways. We're very, I think, happy to see some of the direction that's been coming from NASA and the discussions we've been having about going back to the moon. The Science Mission Directorate, Commercial Lunar Payload Services, solicitations, the CLIP solicitation from Thomas Zurbuchen is a very good first step to kind of enabling a repeatable payload capability acquisition mechanism for NASA. As I said, Blue Moon is on our roadmap, and because of our scale, because of what we see from the government, we brought it a little bit forward in time, and I think we are very excited to now implement this and offer a commercial solution with NASA partnership. So, no.
AC, I'm Dave Heineck with Business Fitness. What's up with the feather?
Yes. So as kind of going back to, this is my interpretation, and I think it's informed by how we've come about it, but going back to the vision of step-by-step ferociously or step-by-step incremental development over time, the feather is a representation of the perfection of flight, that it took nature, different various steps over time, but repeatedly and sustainable evolution to get to a feather that enabled flight. So I think that is part of that kind of image that we'd like to represent, that is represented in our own vision. It's also kind of differentiates us, I think, a little bit in terms of using this image versus a more kind of, let's say, graphical or a kind of more graphically inspired kind of logo, for instance. So I personally have come to like it, and I think others as well in the industry have come to recognize that as our symbol, which is kind of cool. So.
So regarding the Blue Moon lander, is there any thought of that being a reusable landing stage?
We in the advanced development programs, we're looking at a whole bunch of architectures, a whole bunch of evolutions of Blue Moon. So all of those evolutions to reusable systems we are looking at. Once again, the idea of reusability is inherent in both New Shepard, inherent in New Glen, but also we're looking at it for Blue Moon as well.
Hi, Irene Klotz with Aviation Week. Is Blue Origin also looking at reusing second stage and payload fairing?
Like I said, once again, within the advanced development group, we are looking at various evolutions of the product line, and we're always, as I like to say, we're always looking at the what ifs, So now, when those what ifs are implemented, we have to take a look at that. So so we're looking at all of those kind of reusable elements within the architecture always, and when they come online. We're looking at a roadmap, but really the focus is initially get that reusable first stage, expendable second stage out to market first, and then we'll start incremental improvements, upgrades, et cetera, both in various subsystems, and looking at reusability and bringing that online as we go forward. So, yeah. So when people always ask about these what ifs, I always say we're always looking at that because we kind of always are. Kind of strategically, you kind of have to. So that's kind of the fun part of ADP in some sense. So, where's the microphone? Oh, one more question. Where's the microphone? Or I think microphone's back there.
Two very short questions. One, you quote Jeff Bezos looking back when he's 80. How old is he now?
I think it's like, Erica, maybe correct me, 54, 53, 54, I think.
And can you share the specific impulse of the BE-3U?
I cannot share that. Yes. So it's a robust, incredible 120,000-pound LOX hydrogen engine. So, and it can fulfill all of your dreams. No, but it's a very impressive engine, and I'm really enamored by our second stage, hydrogen stage for New Glen. I think that's going to be awesome, an awesome capability. So. All right, with that, I thank everyone. I thank the conference. Please talk to me afterwards. Please talk to Erica. We've got Sam Gunderson, I believe, here in the back as well. Talk to him. He can talk to you about many of the things I've talked to you about. So please come talk to us. Please join us in this journey, and please enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.